Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am broadcasting from the patio on this beautiful Sunday morning, March 31st, 2024. It is Easter Sunday, and if you're celebrating, happy Easter. And we have been through one eclipse, and I found it, I said it was frustrating. I said there were expectations, right? And I did a poll on my Instagram the other day, and I think people found it intense. Mostly people checked the box of intense, and then some frustrating, and a few people said mild. But it also depends on where it hits in your chart, how sensitive you are, and I am very sensitive, obviously. And I'm going to say that it was mostly frustrating, somewhat intense, but I used my pendulum. I did a whole bunch of clearing. I used my new vision, as I told you last week. I did my water bottle, but the pendulum helped a lot. I also, allowed myself to feel my feelings, which were, emotional and various feelings. So, we work through these things. We get through these things. And we're on our way to the other eclipse, the North Node solar eclipse with Chiron. And it is in Aries. And it is interesting because it's just exploding all over the internet. People keep talking about it, and people are like, this is going to be incredible. And some things are going to happen, and bad this and bad that. I wouldn't say that. First of all, the dispositor of the eclipse is Mars, and it's in Pisces. So it could be like what they call the velvet hammer, where it's just like you get hit with something, and then it's like later you wake up and you're, oh, I'm seeing stars. Oh, okay. But this is a very, very powerful eclipse at the exaltation point of the sun, 19 Aries. But it doesn't mean it's going to be bad. And everything, some people think a beautiful sunny day is bad. Well, no, I don't want to get sunburned. Whatever. Sometimes our opinions don't agree, especially on things like eclipses. So let's walk through it together and process whatever is going to happen. It is going to happen next Monday. So it'll be a week from tomorrow. This is a week without eclipses. This is the in-between eclipse week. And I do think that this solar eclipse, it's a total solar eclipse. I do think it's going to be strong, but I don't think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be awful. But let's get there, okay? I may have a different story for you next Sunday. And I may say, et cetera, happened, and this is because of the eclipse, and it's intense, etc. I do expect intensity. I will say that. I do expect intensity. And eclipses are wild cards. It's interesting. I'm doing a lecture I'm out on the patio. The helicopters are coming by. I'm doing a lecture next Saturday, the 6th, about the eclipses through the group internations.org. And I'm part of them because I live in Costa Rica, and anybody can join. Even if you're in your hometown, you can join. It's free. So the woman that's sponsoring this, the woman that's set it up in Internations wrote, it's called these eclipses wild cards. And I think that they are wild cards. I think eclipses are generally wild cards because we don't necessarily know what's going to come of it. You probably won't expect something to be as potent as it is, or you won't expect it to affect the area of your life that it is. And hindsight's always 20/20. And so I really believe that, it is going to be intense, but eclipses are wild cards, and they are not necessarily predictable in the traditional sense. So they are, they bring in a lot of factors, and your reaction to them is a big part of it. How you feel about it, whether you can shrug it off and just go, yeah. Maybe Aries is in a good place in your chart, and you're just like, yeah, I'm not going to let this bother me. And maybe not. It's how it's caught up in your chart. And if it triggers something, well, then that's something that you are needing to work on for this eclipse. They bring emotions to the table. They are often unexpected things, And remember, there's a wildness to this, that we are not necessarily privy to all the information. It has lots of indications, lots of things come up. Remember that, and remember that these are things you're going to work with as you move forward. Yes, I had some intensity. Yes, I had emotions, but I'm also working through all of them and clearing a lot of stuff that came up as a result of it, and learning different skills to move through it and to get to the next level where I need to go. Eclipses always bring you to a new level. So we are in the in-between week, and so we can process this last eclipse and then move on to the next eclipse, and then afterwards say, what level has this brought me to? What new place am I in? So the first thing is that tomorrow is April 1st, and what's interesting, we are at the end of March, and the first quarter of the year is over. Wow. And it's April 1st. And it's tomorrow. And hard to believe, right? Wasn't it just New Year's? Wasn't it just New Year's? Yeah. So here we are at April 1st, and Mercury goes retrograde tomorrow. It is tomorrow night. For the most part, in this region of the world, it's tomorrow evening. It's 6:14 p.m. Eastern Time. If you live in Europe, of course, it'll be later at night. It will be at later parts of the day in Australia, etc., etc. But where I am, it will be 4:14 in the afternoon. And so Mercury is going retrograde in Aries. And that is, Aries is a fine place for Mercury. It's not something where it's in its detriment or anything. And Mercury in Aries should give us a certain amount of buoyancy and excitement, but it also, Mercury, it's retrograde, and it is giving us the review, redefine, reconnect, reestablish, reread everything, okay? So this is something that you need to process over these next 3 weeks. Mercury will be retrograde from April 1st to the 25th, which is a long retrograde. I think the last one was only 21 days or maybe 20 days. It's the one we had in December. And it's technically the first Mercury retrograde of the new year, because the last one started in December and ended on January 1st. So it ended on January 1st. So that's why it's so much later. This is about as late as a Mercury retrograde is going to get if it's happened last year. Okay, so this is the first Mercury retrograde of the new year. And, the eclipse doesn't exactly go there yet. It will be sort of bracketed by Venus and then by Mercury on the other end. But remember what I said last week. The moon is going to leave the sun. It will conjunct the sun, leave the sun, and then bump right into Mercury. So it's not far from the eclipse. So Mercury is often close to the eclipses because it travels closely with the sun. So it is a component of it. So we're going to have a lot of energy in Aries, which seems to be the theme these days. We've been having a lot of energy in Pisces, and now we're going to get it all shifting and moving into Aries, except for Mars, of course. Mars is in Pisces and is going to stay there for a little while. We'll talk about Mars later. But this one of the things that happens this week is that Venus moves into Aries. Right now, she's going to conjunct Neptune, and that's going to happen on Wednesday the 3rd. So Venus conjuncts Neptune in this region of the world at 9:10 a.m. Eastern Time, and it's going to be a beautiful, a little intense moment of connection to people, connection to beliefs, connection to our creativity, our desires, our wishes, our dreams. What are your dreams? What are your visions? What are they, and how do they make a good appearance in your life this week? Like, maybe you realize a dream that you haven't realized. Maybe you're realizing something that is, you didn't think was in your grasp, and it really is. So this is something to look at. And Venus is there. Venus is at 24 degrees, and Neptune is at 27 degrees Pisces. So right now we have 4 planets in Pisces, and then ultimately Venus is going to move into Aries, the moon will move into Aries, and then that will be a bunch of planets in Aries with the eclipse. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 planets in Aries later when we have the eclipse in a week. But for right now, we still have a whole bunch in Pisces, like I said. And I'll get to Venus and Aries in a second. So Venus and Neptune is really important because they only meet once a year unless Venus goes retrograde and crosses Neptune 3 times. But this is something really beautiful. This is beauty. This is appreciation and gratitude for the beautiful things in our lives. This is appreciation and gratitude for things that we have that we don't want to ignore or take for granted. It's so important to have gratitude this week and to tap into a sense of beauty, a sense of calm and peace, and a sense of deep connection with something from spirit. Now, maybe you don't believe in anything. That's fine. Then you can connect to something beautiful and something you have gratitude for in your life. And when you do that, you can experience this connection of Venus and Neptune. They may come as a surprise, too. It may be somebody does something nice for you and you don't expect it. Somebody does something really out of the way. They go out of their way for you. There's something charitable that you feel like you want to do. Somebody does something charitable for you. Giving is a big step here. That's a very lovely way to express Venus and Neptune, is like giving for no reason at all, just to give. And give from your heart. So this is also a very heart-centered aspect. It's beautiful, it's sensitive, it's creative. You may experience emotions. Yes, emotions. This could be a very emotional aspect. Venus is in her exaltation point. She's in Pisces, her sign of exaltation. She's sort of floating on over to Neptune, and they're greeting, and they're connecting, and they feel, Neptune and Venus together feel just like we're being lifted, we're being elevated out of troubles and drama and stuff. Now, that's the beautiful part of it. There's always dark and light. The darker part of this is, Jesus, where did my money go? What happened? Wait, I had money. Where did it go? I spent it. Where did it go? Where did I spend all that? That's one thing. Another thing is, wow, hey, you lied to me. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. You're lying to me. Now, that could come from your child, where they learn how to lie. It could be from anybody in your life, even your parents. But you can, what if you're in a relationship and you found out the person is doing something behind your back? Sure, that could be Venus, Neptune. You could be, in a corporation and found out someone's cheating. Someone has stolen money from the kitty, from the petty cash box, from any place that could be perceived as stolen. You stole my husband. You stole my wife. Any of that. That's also that's the darker side of Venus and Neptune, and also the wishy-washy Pisces, Neptune. I don't know if I want this relationship. Maybe it's not my ideal. Maybe it's not like perfect enough for me. I think I can do better than this. Meanwhile, you have a perfectly satisfactory, wonderful, beautiful relationship, and you're thinking there's something bigger and better out there for you. Maybe, but you have to have, again, gratitude for what you have. And this experience of Venus, Neptune can bring you to that. And you got to look a little more deeply and allow yourself to be sensitive and allow yourself to connect with your feelings, your emotions. But there's a perfection idealism that is associated with this that can be tricky. You may be fooled into thinking that you are capable of doing better than this, and you've got a great relationship. With Jupiter coming to Uranus, that's something that you could be thinking, well, hey, there's bigger and better out there for me, and you've got a wonderful relationship. So let's not get our ego in a kerfuffle and look at the reality of your relationship as Mars approaches Saturn, because there's a balance here. Because there's a balance between, what you're dreaming of and what is really in your life. Now, if they don't match at all, and if you're in a relationship with an addict, which is also a Venus-Neptune thing, then you want to look very clearly at what this is. And maybe, Venus and Neptune are coming together. When they're not triggered, they could make us think we're just coasting along fine. And then we are experiencing something that is really not in our best interests. Okay? So we want to be aware of what's not in our best interests and what could be a better, healthier expression. We want the healthiest expression of Venus Neptune that we can achieve. And that could be, a very wonderful experience of relationship, people, partnerships, and people. It isn't just partnership. Like I said last week with that South Node eclipse in Libra, there were expectations of people that were probably not realistic or appropriate, or we were holding on too dearly to expectations of things, and the expectations are what gets us in trouble, not the relationship, what we project onto the relationship. Our relationship projections are things that we're going to see a whole lot of this week, okay? Yes, there could be romance. Yes, there can be beauty. Have an all-out beautiful romance with nature, okay? Go tend to nature. Go walk in the park, be by the ocean. Watch the sunset. Watch the sunrise. I'm more of a sunset person. But this is that's a safe way, sort of a safe way for the most part. If it rains by you, April showers, go appreciate the rain, go dance in the rain, go experience the beauty of nature. That will not fail you. You can find beauty in all of it, whether it's a beautiful sunset or your own garden. Just go experience nature, and that would be something really special for Venus Neptune. Your relationships can get tricky, and you can experience something unsavory, and it could be called to your attention during Venus Neptune. So what we want is a beautiful experience of this, but also a realistic one. And I think now Mars, which is in Pisces, which is not realistic either, necessarily, can be. Lots of Pisces have a good reality, good sense of reality. But Mars is approaching Saturn, and Mars is actually going to be connecting with Saturn at the eclipse. And then, there's still 7 degrees apart. So by the time we get to this week, where Venus and Neptune are meeting, we're going to be experiencing a certain amount of Mars-Saturn more strongly. And I think that's going to help us stay in balance. I mean, it's all in Pisces for sure, 4 planets in Pisces, but it does give us a certain dose of reality with Mars meeting Saturn. And we don't want it to be a punch in the face. So, like I said before, the velvet hammer, right? It's like you're hit and you go, oh, that was not right. So this Pisces can be a tricky energy. Neptune can be a tricky energy. And one of the things you want to remember here is, to stay in balance. If you feel yourself floating over the edge into fantasy land, then you want to bring yourself back and get grounded. And Mars-Saturn is really good for getting grounded. They're not conjunct yet, but they are coming together soon, and it's a reminder that we do need to stay focused, grounded, and in reality with whatever. If your dream date shows up and you're like all swoony, isn't he dreamy? Isn't she dreamy? Well, then that's lovely. Appreciate it for what it is, but stay in reality. They're dreamy. They can be dreamy, but they're going to move across the other side of the world next week. Okay, so this is a last minute date before they leave. Who knows why they would do that, but they're moving across the other side of the world tomorrow. So, I can't get, you have to determine whether that's good for you or not. Oh, I like long distance relationships. Okay, so that's part of what's going on this week. And, it's important to just recognize the reality versus the fantasy. And so that's going to be one of the little tests for us that we go through in the next week or so. Then there is Venus moving into Aries, and Venus will move into Aries on Thursday the 4th. Now, in the Pacific time zone, it's 9 p.m., but Venus is moving to Aries really April 5th, Friday, and in the Eastern time zone, it's 12 a.m., it's midnight, but, if you live in Europe or Japan or Australia or Africa, it's going to be firmly on Friday the 5th that Venus moves into Aries. So this is an interesting thing because she gives Neptune a kiss in this swoozy, woozy, juicy fantasy thing, or highly romantic, beautiful, all my dreams are realized thing. And then she moves swiftly into Aries the next day, and she's like, yeah, let's go, baby. It's like ambition, ambition, ambition. Right. So Venus is not at her best in Aries. She's moving from one of her favorite places where she's exalted in Pisces into Aries, where she's fast and she's intense and she's direct and she's fiery. And so it's not her best place. It's not her best choices. She doesn't make the best choices, but we have to stay clear on and she's clear, but Venus and Aries is very clear. So when you're dealing with Venus and Aries, you're dealing with something that could be very clear. It just may not be, she may be impatient. She may be a little angry. She may not be happy with what happened when Venus kissed Neptune. And now she's furious. So Venus will be in Aries, and, it's not the end of the world. Of course it's not. She's, plenty of people function and they have Venus in Aries. And they may be very fiery in their dealings with people and in their creativity. They may be kind of volcanic. But Venus in Aries is going to be part of this eclipse. And what's going to happen is before the moon meets the sun, the moon will glide over Venus. And it will take a little spot in the eclipse because it's sort of a parenthesis of the eclipse. That means that the moon will meet Venus next Sunday afternoon. The eclipse is Monday. And she will be like one place. The two goddesses will come together. She'll be at one place, and then the moon goes over the sun, and then it meets the other planets that are in Aries, like Chiron and then Mercury. So there's, Chiron's not a planet. When I say there's 4 planets in Aries, 4 planets in Chiron. So there'll be the comet Chiron in Aries as well. So we've got all of this grouped together, and the sun will be there present already, and the moon will come in Sunday and then just sort of move over all of these planets. But it's going to be a hot, hot moment when the moon meets the sun. I think it's going to be interesting. And Venus being part of that is, it should add something lovely to it. It should add something beautifully flavorful to it, to Venus being part of this. She wants to be part of the eclipse. She's moved into Aries. She's like, hey, include me in this party. So I think that this is a positive thing. We're going to see when a very heated up moon, which is getting ready to conjunct the sun, it's the dark of the moon, conjuncts Venus on Sunday, and that's the next time we will meet here on the Golden Astrologer Podcast, and we'll talk about that next Sunday. And we're going to, stir the pot a little bit when that happens. So you should start feeling this getting revved up on Sunday next week. We're really feeling it now. We're feeling it all along. But next week is the time when next weekend is when we're going to really start getting the juice of the eclipse and the meaning of the eclipse for each of us. Okay? So just be aware of that. And watch your head. Even in the days before, yes, I'm going to tell you next Sunday again, to watch your head, because Aries for lots of reasons. Aries is the head, physically the head on the body. It rules the first part of a human, the head. And it's where we lose our head. So don't lose your head at someone. Don't get infuriated and lose your head and give yourself a headache later because I lost my head. It's an impulsive energy. All this energy in Aries. If you are that triggered by this eclipse and you lose your head at someone or because of something, don't be impulsive. You have to step down, take a breath, go for a walk. Go for a walk, physically move. Go do some exercise, go run on the treadmill, go for a jog. Just use the energy because you know what? With Chiron there, we are going to get triggered. Our wounds are going to get triggered. And what are those wounds? Well, you're going to find out if you allow yourself to get triggered. And there's going to be something in this that gives each of us moment of pause, moment of triggered experience. I expect something. It isn't going to be all, hey, great, it's amazing, I feel so empowered. It could be, but remember that there's a moment where we have to connect with that Chiron energy and we understand where the wound is in the Aries portion of our chart. Where is the self or the individual not feeling its own confidence blazing forward? Where does that self, that individual feel wounded? What has been wounded in you in that area? What part of your chart is it in? Maybe you have it in the second house. Maybe you have it in the fourth house. It's your family or something. Maybe it's the 10th house. You feel wounded by people in the career sector. Maybe your career feels wounding. But it's important to take a look at this because this is the moment of pausing in that eclipse. It's the Chiron moment. And so when we understand when we're triggered, how we're triggered, what the trigger is, we can work on that wound. And this eclipse, eclipses are dark than light. And every month when we have the new moon, we're in the dark of the moon, and then the moon conjuncts the sun, and the light comes back to the moon, and the moon starts to wax, and we start to see a little sliver in the sky in the coming days. But this is really, truly about looking at your wound and not allowing yourself to get triggered to the point where you're impulsive and you blow your stack and you lose your head. Okay? And be careful of accidents to the head too, because they can be very real during these Aries eclipses. So be very cautious of that. Be very careful just in your movements, because Aries is a very fly by to the seat of the pants, impulsive energy. Yeah, I'm just going to do it. We're just going to do it. Let's just go. And if you feel a wild energy moving through you, great. Use it constructively. Maybe you can go jogging and get inspired for something with your business. Aries is good in business. Aries also, and I think I've said this before, whenever I meet Aries people, they have 100 talents. They have 100 talents. They're just like the burst of talent. They can paint. They can make jewelry. They can keep orchids. They can keep a farm. They can sing. They can, they can do like all these varieties of talents and abilities. Like, oh yeah, you play the drums too? You don't just paint? You don't just, drive a Formula One vehicle? Paul Newman, the actor, was Aries rising. And he was an Aquarius. And he's an Aquarius with Aries rising. That's lots of energy. And he used to describe himself as a race car driver who sometimes acts. And he was a race car driver. You could go back and see old pictures of him in the races and stuff. And he's, I think he looked like an Aries too. He had that ram look in his face. And yes, you can see people's signs in their faces, in their stature, in their posture. You can see them very much. The rising sign. Not so much the sun. unless the sun's in the first house. But, you know, if if it's a strong rising sign, you might see that in their faces, which is always interesting to me, because if somebody says, "Oh, I don't know if I'm born here or there," and I look at them and I say, "Yeah, seem more like Virgo rising to me than Libra," so I'm going to say Virgo, that kind of thing, just based on physical appearance. And it's very interesting how we can do that. But I think it's another fascinating point of astrology. But yes, Paul Newman said he was a race car driver who sometimes acts. Meanwhile, we know what a phenomenal actor he was and what an incredible career he had. And so that's an interesting perception of himself. So yes, Aries has lots of talents, lots and lots of talents. So use this energy to discover new talents, to dip into new things, and don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to dip into something new for yourself. Aries is an exciting energy, so let's get excited and positive, okay? And notice your triggers. But I'll talk to you about this before then. And in the meantime, if you would like an astrology session, you can come join me in session, and you can connect with your astrological chart and what it means and how you feel and what's coming up for you, and what this year looks like for you. In a session with me, go to thegoldenastrologer.com and click book online, and all of my availabilities are there. You can book yourself into my calendar. All the available appointments, you can come to me for 5D Reiki, which is lovely and peaceful and beautiful, but also very intense, because everybody who has a session with me in Reiki says, "Wow, that was intense," afterwards. And it is intense. And I go deep with it. So there's that. And then there's also my expansion mentoring, which is available for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, where you can live with me, do life with me, and we have appointments in those months, and we work through patterns and clear things that are in your way, and we get you to fall in love with your life, fall deeper in love with your life. Even if you are already in love with your life, you can fall more deeply in love with your life, and really know the art of becoming next level with expansion mentoring, knowing your expansion. So a beautiful experience. Thank you for listening. This has been a lovely Easter Sunday podcast sermon transmission. It always feels like transmissions to me. I just let it roll. I just let what comes through me speak through me from spirit. So, and of course, knowing my astrology, flipping through my book a little bit. But I welcome you to listen every week. I welcome you for a session. I welcome you to visit my Instagram, The Golden Astrologer, and my website, thegoldenastrologer.com. And I hope you have a beautiful Sunday and have a beautiful week ahead. And I will see you the day before the eclipse. Gratitude to all. Thank you for listening.